Hello and welcome back. We will discuss an important accounting standard, not because it is tested for a lot of marks, but this standard, in my opinion, is, accounting at its magnificent best. Jojo, whatever you know about accounting, be it matching principle, be it accrual concept, all of those prudence principle, all of them come together beautifully in one accounting standard, which is IAS 12 income taxes. Now, this standard basically is a justification for a lot of accounting that you are doing, and it, in a way, completes the entire picture of the financial statements. Now, I don't call it a main accounting standard, okay? And especially in SBR exams, IAS 12 is not like, it's not a key player. It's in a supporting role. IFRS 15 is a key player. Leases is a key player. Property, plant and equipment is a key player. ये standard उन सारे standards को support करता है. So whatever accounting impacts are caused by these standards, उनका income tax implication is handled by IAS 12. So unless a revenue transaction is recorded, unless a lease transaction is recorded, unless revaluation is recorded, deferred tax या current tax का entry होगा ही नहीं. So this standard is an outcome or a support function to other standards. ये independent standard नहीं है, which is why you cannot expect like a 30 marker on or 25 marks पूरा का पूरा on IAS 12 is not going to happen. It is going to be in support of some other standard. Before we get into the details of what is this accounting all about, I want you to understand a term called अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट एंड टैक्सेबल इनकम. अब व्हाट इज अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट जो आप बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स प्रिपेयर करते हो? बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स आर प्रिपेयर्ड इन अकॉर्डेंस विद कंपनीज एक्ट. दे आर प्रिपेयर्ड एज पर अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स. अब अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स के अपनी स्टोरीज चलती है. यू सी अकाउंटिंग इज सच अ मेड अप फील्ड. थिंक अबाउट इट. असेट आपका नहीं है, फिर भी किसी और का असेट है, स्टिल यू आर रिकॉर्डिंग दैट इन योर बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स एंड कॉलिंग इट अ राइट ऑफ यूज असेट. ये तो यार मतलब these are signs of a mental patient in my opinion. तुम्हारा asset नहीं है फिर भी you are saying it is your asset. Actually कोई finance charge नहीं है but you are recording an entry for unwinding of discount. P&L मतलब finance charges account debit to lease liability. So in my opinion this is a complete, accounting is a made up science. अब because I'm calling accounting a made up science, there are lots of irregularities that have taken place. This standard that we are going to study will balance off all those irregularities. The yin yang balance will be established in this standard. आपका अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट इज प्रॉफिट एज पर बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स. ठीक है. व्हेनेवर आई से अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट या बुक प्रॉफिट, दैट मींस बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स में, प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट में प्रॉफिट बिफोर टैक्स कितना दिख रहा है, दैट इज योर अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट. ठीक है. व्हाट इज योर टैक्सेबल इनकम? टैक्स अथॉरिटीज आर लाइक कि देखो ये सब स्टोरी दैट यू मेड अप ना, कि अरे फाइनेंस चार्जेस रिकॉर्ड करो बट है ही नहीं, ईसॉप एक्सपेंस रिकॉर्ड करो बिकॉज आई वांट टू स्प्रेड इट ओवर 3 years, या ये सब हमें नहीं पता. वी डोंट केयर फॉर दीज थिंग्स. वी डोंट केयर फॉर योर revaluations. वी डोंट केयर फॉर योर फेयर वैल्यू चेंजेस. हमें रियल प्रॉफिट चाहिए. सो टैक्स अथॉरिटीज केम अप विद देयर ओन सेट ऑफ लॉस कॉल्ड द इनकम टैक्स एक्ट in India, or HMRC came up with something in the United Kingdom, and they said कि देखो, if you want to calculate taxable income, we will tell you how to calculate that taxable income. तुम्हारे accounting के stories don't come and irritate us with that. So they gave their own approach to calculating the income, taxable income for that matter. अब ये जो taxable profit या taxable income है, this is calculated as per rules and regulations given to you by the tax authorities. Now don't read till I tell you to read. Pay complete attention to me. Now, what happens is the accounting profit and taxable profit are in most cases different. To give you a small example, if I have to pay bonus to an employee, what entry will I record? And I want to pay, I haven't paid yet. I will record an entry, bonus account or bonus expense account debit to bonus payable. ऐसा entry record करके मैं बैठ जाऊंगा. Bonus expense account debit to bonus payable. I follow the accrual basis for accounting. This bonus वाला entry will, the bonus expense will get recorded in P&L. ठीक है. Bonus expense gets recorded in P&L, and then while calculating the accounting profit, all the debits are subtracted and you have the figure for your accounting profit. But tax authorities specifically tell you कि listen, you record as many bonus accruals as you want, we don't care, but when will we allow you to deduct the bonus for calculating the taxable profit only when you have paid the bonus. So unless and until the amount of bonus is paid, physically paid in cash to the employees, income tax authorities do not allow you to deduct the bonus amount while calculating the taxable income. ठीक है, just difference in rules है. Books of accounts which the depreciation that you calculate, that depreciation is as per straight line method or as per what the Companies Act tells you. Income tax authorities have a different way of calculating depreciation. They call it, in UK they call it capital allowance. In India we call it income tax depreciation. And that is a different set of rules for calculating that. In some cases they will say pura ka pura 100% deduction allowed in the first year of acquisition. In some cases they will say 6% hoga. So different rates are there in income tax. So again, because of the fact that the accounting depreciation and the tax depreciation are different from each other, the accounting profit and the taxable profit are again different from each other. Okay, now if you are a layman and you look at the P&L account of a company and then you see a profit of 1 lakh rupees, profit before tax of 1 lakh rupees, which is calculated using all these accounting principles, you know that the tax rate in your country is 30%. Your expectation will be कि अगर 1 lakh rupees is the amount of profit before tax, the amount of tax should be 30,000. But when you look at the amount of tax provision created, you will see 26,200, and that will put you in a, that will make you question everything कि यार अगर rate of tax 30% है तो why is the tax amount only 26,200? There appears to be a mismatch in the rate and the amount that should have been calculated versus the amount that has actually been calculated. अब ये difference किस वजह से है? This difference is because of the reason that the accounting profit and the taxable profit are different from each other. Okay, accounting profit and taxable profit are different from each other. If you want to resolve this difference, IAS 12 deferred taxes or IAS 12 income taxes will help you to understand how to tackle that. ठीक है. Let's go through one simple example. This is profit and loss account for year 1. Sales दिया है, purchase, salary, bonus and rent. After deducting these expenses, my profit before tax is 55,000. ये profit कैसे निकला? This profit was calculated using all the accounting principles and accounting standards. ठीक है, accrual, matching, ये वो सब जोड़ के you arrived at this number. Now the tax authorities are very clear. They say we don't care for this. हमें नहीं चाहिए. We will tell you how to calculate taxable profit and you pay tax on the taxable profit. So the tax authorities come up to me and they tell me कि listen Satyam, the calculation that you have done is absolutely incorrect. You have debited P&L account with a bonus of 5,000. I said, yeah, why? Accrual concept. Tax authorities are no. Accrual concept I don't care about. You will deduct bonus as a deductible expense only when you have paid the bonus. Satyamit, have you paid the bonus in the current year? I say, no, I haven't paid. Then they are like, no, you will not get deduction on this. So 1 lakh में से you subtract 24, you subtract 10, you subtract 6. Don't subtract 5. So what will be your taxable income? Your taxable income will be 60,000. On this 60,000, tax at the rate of 25% will be 15. And this, see, taxable income is 60. On that, I have to pay a tax of 15. What is the thought process? The thought process is कि देखो 60,000 का इनकम कमाया, उस पे 15,000 टैक्स पे करना है राइट नाउ. अकाउंटिंग एंट्री इज करंट टैक्स अकाउंट डेबिट टू टैक्स पेएबल. ठीक है, करंट टैक्स एक्सपेंस अकाउंट डेबिट टू टैक्स पेएबल. दिस शुड बी योर अकाउंटिंग एंट्री. But what is my accounting profit? Accounting profit is 55,000 and मेरे दिमाग में 11th standard में matching concept was taught to me. So I am insistent on that कि यार if 55,000 is the profit, then the provision for tax should be created for 13,750. Why have you created for 15,000? In my mind, 55,000 into 25% should be the amount of tax provision. Now, as per basic matching principle, my tax provision should be 13,750, but I am going to pay 15,000. Why is there a difference? Because accounting profit and taxable profit are different. Now, Because accounting profit and taxable profit are different, I expected my tax liability to be 13,750, but the liability came down to 15,000. मेरा expectation था 13,750, liability came to 15,000, which means I had to pay 1,250 over and above the amount that I had expected to pay. मेरे हिसाब से the amount of payment using the basic matching principle should have been 55,000 into 25%, that is 13,750. How much did I actually end up paying? I actually ended up paying 15,000, which was 1,250 more than the amount that I had expected. Are you all with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on to year two. Year two mein I prepare a P&L account. Everything is the same, but there is no bonus accrual entry in this year. Okay, no bonus accrual in the second year. Now, the tax authorities have told ki, listen, Satyam, we don't give you deduction for accrual of bonus. We give you deduction for payment of bonus. Okay. Now, in the last year, in the year 23-24, I recorded an entry bonus expense account debit to bonus payable, but I never paid it. When we came to the year 24-25, that is when the actual bonus payment happened. I calculated the performance of the employees, I checked that, and then I decided to pay the bonus to these employees. मैंने कितना पे किया? 5,000. I had booked a provision. I paid the bonus immediately. Now I say to the tax authorities कि देखो, last year you were unfair with me. अब तुम्हें मैं I will show you how things work. So when I sit down to prepare my tax computation, from 1 lakh I subtract 24, I subtract 10, I subtract 6, and then I remember, oh, the bonus that I had recorded as a payable last year, I have actually paid that bonus in the current year. I should subtract that because tax authorities had told me when you pay, you subtract. So I subtracted 5,000 here. My taxable profit is now 55,000. On this 55,000, I calculate tax of at the rate of 25%, and 13,750 is my amount of tax. Again, that matching principles comes up in my head ki yaar Satyamed, your accounting profit was 60,000 and you are recording the accounting entry for provision, so it should have been 25%, that is 15,000. Payment should have been 15,000, but the actual provision that you have made is only for 13,750. And then the whole law of karma hits me. That in the last year, I had paid excess, I had paid more than what I was supposed to pay as per my expectation. जो last year में excess pay किया, वो current year में I will recover. ठीक है. So last year I had paid 1,250 extra. What is the situation in the current year? In the current year, the payment should have been 15,000 in my as per my calculation, but the actual payment came down to 13,750. This year it was less than what I expected. I expected 15,000, but now I am paying only 13,750. It's not, it's the good deeds of last year, it's the excess payment of last year which is coming to my rescue in the current year. So last year I expected to pay a tax of 13,750, lekin you made me pay 15,000. I kept that idea in my mind. Next year I will settle my scores with you. इस साल 1250 ज्यादा पे किया ना, next year 1250 मैं कम पे करूंगा. Why? Because I will pay the bonus in the next year, and when I pay the bonus, I will get the deduction. So the way it works in my head is the 1,250 extra that I paid in year one is in fact reversed in year two when I had to pay 1,250 less. So I paid 1,250 extra, and the situation got reversed in year two when I ended up paying 1,250 less. So 1,250 paid extra in year one is not an expense. It is an amount that you will end up recovering in the future. So it is like an asset for you. So at the end of year one, what entry do you record? You record an entry tax expense account debit to provision for current tax 15,000, debit side of P&L. And then you have been told कि listen Satyam, the 1,250 that we are making you pay extra in this year, next year में जाके वो recover हो जाएगा. So that recovery is going to happen in the next year or in the future. So I record a receive. In my mind, I think of it as a receivable adjustment. So I debit deferred tax asset with 1,250 and I credit P&L with 1,250, right? A new asset has come into existence. P&L देखो, P&L के डेबिट साइड में 15,000, क्रेडिट साइड में 1,250. What is the net impact on P&L? The net impact on P&L is 15 का डेबिट, 1,250 का क्रेडिट, 13,750 का डेबिट. What was the accounting profit in year one? This is summary of P&L for year one. What was the accounting profit for year one? Accounting profit for year one was 55,000. 55,000 का 30% was 13,750, right? कितना रेट था? टैक्स रेट 25% था, ठीक है। 13,750, 15,000 का डेबिट, 1250 का क्रेडिट हुआ ना, नेट इम्पैक्ट ऑन P&L 13,750, राइट? सो 55,000 जो आपका अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट है, दैट इंटू 25% हो गया आपका मैचिंग प्रिंसिपल ऑनर, एवरीवन?
Yes, sir.
सो डज द एंट्री मेक सेंस?
Yes, sir.
ओके, लेट्स गो टू ईयर टू. दिस इज अ बिग एग्जाम्पल. यहाँ पे what has happened is an entity has purchased a non-current asset for 10 lakh and it has an useful life of 10 years and no residual value. So year on year accounting depreciation will be 1 lakh, 10 lakh upon 10. And income tax authorities tell you that we will give you depreciation on a 25% WDV basis. Now, accounting profit before recording accounting depreciation is 15 lakh. Taxable income before recording income tax depreciation is also 15 lakh. So the first thing that I set down to do is that I set down to calculate my accounting profit for year 1 to year 10. Accounting profit before depreciation 15 lakh, subtract 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh each year. And for each of the 10 years, my accounting profit after depreciation is 14 lakh. What is the rate of depreciation as per income tax law? As per income tax law, the rate of depreciation is 25%. Up 10 lakh by 25% on a written down value basis. Year one में it will be 250, then 187,500, then 146,25, so on and so forth up to year 10. Now I don't need to tell you how to calculate WDV method का depreciation at the end of year, WDV depreciation for each year. So after you record the WDV depreciation as per income tax rules, what will be the taxable income after tax wala depreciation? 1250, 13,12,500, 13,59,375, so on and so forth. अब आप कंपेयर करो तो ईयर वन में अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट वाज 14 लाख. एज पर मैचिंग प्रिंसिपल, my tax at the rate of 30% should have been 4,20,000, but the taxable income was 12,50,000 and tax authorities are like, you pay tax on this taxable income of 12,50,000. उस पे आपने 30% कर दिया, कितना हो गया? 3,75,000 हो गया. So the actual amount that you have to pay will be 3,75,000. So you created a provision of 4,20,000. In your mind, you thought that I should create a provision of 4,20,000 because that is 30% of 14 lakh. But the actual tax payable was 3,75,000 only. So in your mind, your expectation is 420, but you are paying a lesser amount this year, and the balance of karma will stay in your life. If you are saving something this year, God, or in this case, income tax authorities will come to you and recover that amount from you in the next year. ठीक है? जो आज आपने कम पे किया ना, the saving that you had today, for the reason that the taxable income was lesser than the accounting profit, God, or in this case income tax authorities are saying, आज तो छोड़ दिया लेकिन कल आके पकड़ेंगे. We are letting you pay a lesser amount today, but remember, we will come trying to recover this amount from you in the future. So in this case, although my expected outflow was 420, I ended up paying 3,75,000. The 45,000 that I paid less in this year, don't think of it as a lifelong saving. This is a saving right now, but in the future, you will have to pay it back to the government. So the tax saving today is going to be paid in the future. This situation creates a deferred tax liability. In this case, the excess tax paid today was going to be recovered in the future. We called it deferred tax asset. In this case, the less tax paid today, the tax saving today will have to be paid or will have to be reversed in the future. Hence, we call it a deferred tax liability. Now, this continues every year. Year 2 में देखो, tax as per your expectation was 420 and taxable income after tax depreciation was 13,12,500, and on that your tax liability came to 393,750. Now, again, your expectation is 420, but you are paying only 393,750. So again, you are saving some tax this year, which will start getting recovered by the government authorities at some point of time in the future. Enjoy your happiness till it lasts, because it will be, it will rain upon you after some time. And we follow the prudence principle. Now, agar future में pay करना है because of an event that has taken place today, record the liability today itself. So each year we are recording deferred tax liability. You arrive in the year 5. Year 5 में देखो, profit before tax is 14 lakh. उस पे 30% is 4,20,000. Okay, this is your expectation ki in my opinion I will have to pay 420, but now the tables have turned, the wheels of fortune have changed. In year 5, the taxable income is more than the accounting income. Taxable income is 142898. उस पे 30% के हिसाब से tax is 426,269. So you thought you would have to pay 4,20,000, but your actual liability is coming to 426,269. ठीक है, so what you are paying is more than what you had expected to pay. And this is only what I would say, this is just justice in the world. You saved something in the past, you have to, वो आपको देना तो पड़ेगा. You will never be allowed to walk away with it. So in year 1, 2, 3, 4, when we had a tax saving, we created a deferred tax liability. Up year 5 में when the recovery has started happening, I will now have to reverse the deferred tax liability. ठीक है, year 4 to year 5, tax paid is more than my expectation, tax paid is more than my expectation, so on and so forth. So the total tax saving in year 1, 2, 3, 4 of 85,078 ultimately got reversed in the future. Tax saving is not a permanent tax saving. ऐसा नहीं है कि भाई this is a holiday and you enjoy. Whatever you do today, whatever you save today will have to be recovered from you in the future. So what we do is we record a deferred tax liability. Ab check karo, accounting profit is greater than taxable income, you create a deferred tax liability. Accounting profit is greater than taxable income, you create a deferred tax liability. ठीक है, this continues till year 4, after which the entries start getting reversed. DTL, that is deferred tax liability account, debit to profit and loss account. This will be your accounting entry. This approach to calculating the deferred tax is known as the P&L approach to deferred tax. ठीक है, continuing with the same example, यहाँ पे ऑब्जर्व करो, व्हाट वर द डेफर्ड टैक्स अमाउंट्स, 45,000, 26,250, 12,188, एंड दैट इज व्हाट यू वर सपोज टू रिकॉर्ड द एंट्री विथ. अब आप यहाँ पे आओ, come to another approach to calculating the deferred tax. ठीक है, year 1 में, and in each of the years we will calculate something that is known as the carrying amount. अब carrying amount तो आप calculate कर रहे हो since you were kids. Carrying amount of a non-current asset is total cost minus accumulated depreciation till date. 10 lakh minus 1 lakh, 9 lakh is the carrying amount at end of year 1, then 8 lakh, then 7 lakh, then 6 lakh, so on and so forth. Now we calculate something that is known as the tax base. In this case, I will explain you what a tax base is, but in this case, tax base is the written down value for tax purposes. वो भी आपने लिख लिया, 25% WDV depreciation के बाद what is the value, you noted down the values and you arrived at the difference figure. ठीक है, आपको क्या मिला, आपको मिला आपका डिफरेंस फिगर, डिफरेंस बिटवीन कैरिंग अमाउंट एंड टैक्स बेस. ठीक है, नाउ द डिफरेंस इज 1,50,000, उसका आप 30% कैलकुलेट करो, दैट गिव्स यू 45,000. दिस इज द डेफर्ड टैक्स लाइबिलिटी बैलेंस दैट वी नीड इन द बैलेंस शीट. कितना चाहिए डेफर्ड टैक्स लाइबिलिटी, 45,000. इसके पहले देयर वाज नो डेफर्ड टैक्स लाइबिलिटी, सो यू विल क्रिएट एन एंट्री, P&L अकाउंट डेबिट टू डेफर्ड टैक्स लाइबिलिटी 45,000. Year 2 में when you come, the difference between the carrying amount and tax base is 237,500. उसका अगर आप difference निकालेंगे 237,500, उस पे you calculate 30%. That means the liability at the end of year 2 should have been 71,250. ठीक है, आपके पास ऑलरेडी 45,000 का लाइबिलिटी है. हाउ मच मोर डेफर्ड टैक्स लाइबिलिटी शुड यू क्रिएट, 71,250 minus 45,000 gives you 26,250. Isn't that the amount that you calculated here? So basically, whether you take the P&L approach to deferred tax or whether you take the balance sheet approach to deferred tax, it does not have any implication on the amount of deferred tax asset or deferred tax liability that you are recording in your बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स। ईयर 3 में भी देखो, द डिफरेंस बिटवीन कैरिंग अमाउंट एंड टैक्स बेस वाइडेंड, इट बिकेम 278 125। ठीक है, सो ऑन 278 125 at the rate of 30%, the liability balance in my books of accounts should have been 83 438. The actual balance is 71 250 लास्ट ईयर। तो और कितना क्रिएट करूं डेफर्ड टैक्स लाइबिलिटी? 12188। Isn't that the entry that I have recorded already? So whether you take the P&L approach or whether you take the balance sheet approach, it does not have any implication on the amount of deferred tax liability that you are creating. Remember one thing, in the exam, ideally you are expect as per IAS 12, not in the exam just, even as per IAS 12 you are supposed to apply the balance sheet approach, but इस पे ना बहुत सारे बड़े बड़े क्वेश्चंस नहीं आते हैं। When you create a deferred tax liability, the entry is tax expense or tax expense to deferred tax liability, and then that tax expense goes to P&L. When you start reversing the DTL, entry is deferred tax liability to P&L account. ठीक है, these are your accounting entries when it comes to creation of a deferred tax liability and a deferred tax asset. Are you with me so far, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, give
Yes.
me 1 second, I'll be back and then we'll continue. Cool. Now, let's quickly try to recap what is the meaning of tax base and carrying amount. Carrying amount though is the amount shown in your books of accounts for an asset. Tax base for an asset means in the future, with respect to this asset, आपको how much more deduction will you get for income tax purposes? Say for example, I have purchased a मशीनरी, ठीक है, उस पे कॉस्ट इज 10 लाख रुपीज, आई रिकॉर्ड 20% इनकम टैक्स का डेप्रिसिएशन, तो हाउ मच अमाउंट इज लेफ्ट? 8 लाख इज लेफ्ट एज माई टैक्स रिटर्न डाउन वैल्यू। नाउ इन द फ्यूचर ये 8 लाख रुपीज एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम और द अदर, पूरा का पूरा 8 लाख तो मेरा डिडक्शन क्लेम हो ही जाएगा ना। 20% next year, 20%, 20%, 20% in that manner. And when I sell the asset, if there is a loss on disposal, तो वो भी I will get as a deduction. So tax base of an asset is with respect to this asset in the future, how much more deduction or how much income tax का deduction I will get. That is what I understand by tax base of an asset. Carrying amount is the amount shown in my books of accounts. That is my carrying amount. Tax base means with respect to this asset, मुझे और कितना डिडक्शन मिलेगा इन द फ्यूचर फॉर इनकम टैक्स पर्पसेस। Tax base of a liability and carrying amount of a liability is slightly different. Carrying amount of a liability is the same amount shown in books of accounts. Tax base of a liability is carrying amount minus how much more amount will I get as a deduction in the future. Think about bonus payable. I recorded an entry on 31st of March 24 called bonus account debit to bonus payable. Bonus payable is a liability, 10,000 rupees. Now I know that when I pay this amount in the future, when I pay the bonus, I will get a deduction of 10,000. So what is carrying amount? Carrying amount is amount payable. That is my carrying. So मेरा जो tax base आएगा वो कैसे आएगा? Carrying amount that is 10,000 minus deduction that I will get in the future against this liability. Future में कितना deduction मिलेगा? 10,000 का deduction मिलेगा when I make the payment. So carrying amount is the amount shown in the balance sheet. Tax basis carrying amount minus amount that will be allowed as a deduction in the future. In the future, how much more deduction will I get against this particular liability? वो आप subtract करो, you will get the tax base of a liability. In certain cases, say for example, you're talking about penalty, okay? Penalty that you have to pay for some non-compliance or for some violation. When you pay the penalty, future में आपको कोई deduction नहीं मिलने वाला. Income tax authorities don't reward bad behavior. So carrying amount 1000 होगा, amount that will be allowed as a deduction in the future 0 होगा. Why? Because you have committed a नॉन कंप्लायंस, उसके लिए आपको डिडक्शन नहीं मिलने वाला है इन द फ्यूचर. सो टैक्स बेस ऑफ अ लाइबिलिटी इज कैरिंग अमाउंट माइनस अमाउंट दैट विल बी अलाउड एज अ डिडक्शन इन द फ्यूचर. टैक्स बेस ऑफ एन असेट इज विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू दिस असेट, मुझे फ्यूचर में कितना डिडक्शन मिलेगा, दैट इज माय टैक्स बेस ऑफ एन असेट. टैक्स बेस ऑफ अ लाइबिलिटी इज कैरिंग अमाउंट माइनस हाउ मच मोर डिडक्शन will I get against this liability or against this payable in the future. Which brings us to some of our basic rules. For assets, carrying amount greater than tax base, create a deferred tax liability. Carrying amount less than tax base, reverse the DTL or create a DTA. For liabilities, the rule is reversed. If carrying amount is greater than tax base, create a DTA. If carrying amount is less than tax base, then you should create a deferred tax liability. ठीक है, ये हो गया आपका बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ deferred tax assets and deferred tax liabilities. There are four special transactions that you should be aware of. The first one of which is interaction of IAS 6 and IAS 16 and IAS 12. Now, if an asset gets revalued, think about it. What is the accounting entry? The accounting entry is non-current asset account debit to revaluation surplus. When the revaluation of a non-current asset happens, the carrying amount of the non-current asset increases, but the tax base doesn't change. So earlier you were going to calculate difference between 60,000 and 50,000, but now the non-current asset has been revalued, which is why now the difference will be calculated between 1,50,000, for example. So the amount of my difference between carrying amount and tax base is increasing because of the revaluation, which means my deferred tax liability ka value will also increase. Are you with me so far, all of you?
Yes.
Think about this fact कि देखो, when you recorded the revaluation surplus, the accounting entry was non-current asset to revaluation surplus, which got routed through OCI. It was never brought to P&L. Now, because of this revaluation surplus, there is an additional deferred tax liability that you had to calculate. Now, if the revaluation surplus was not credited to P&L, it is unfair that the deferred tax impact should be recorded in P&L, right? So the impact of deferred tax in this case is also routed through OCI. The amount of DTL referred through OCI is the amount of revaluation into the tax rate. ठीक है, to understand that further, I want you to read this particular example on your screen. एक बार देख लो. Tell me when you want me to scroll up. ठीक है. My key learning is revaluation of an item of PPE gets routed through OCI. So extra DTL impact due to such revaluation will also get routed through OCI. P&L account debit, OCI or other components of equity debit to deferred tax liability. Now, the deferred tax wala adjustment sometimes also comes with respect to losses. Now, you should understand the idea of how losses work. Okay. Most tax authorities, if I make a profit, the tax authorities make me pay tax. So, isn't it fair that I expect the tax authorities to pay me if I incur a loss? And if I make this atrocious demand to the HMRC or to the income tax authorities, they will say nothing doing, but we will not pay you when you incur a loss. But they give you one concession. They tell you that if you incur a loss in the current year, and unfortunately, that is the situation, we will allow you to carry forward the loss in the next year. Okay. So in the current year, I incurred a loss of 1 lakh, and in the next year, I am earning a profit of 2 lakh. So current year ka loss, I will carry it forward to the next year and adjust it against profits. So 2 lakh minus 1 lakh. I ideally see if there would have been no adjustment of the brought forward losses, I would have to pay tax on 2 lakh into 30%, that is 60,000. But because HMRC or the tax authorities allowed me to adjust the amount of brought forward losses, 2 lakh minus 1 lakh, I have to pay tax only on the remaining amount of 1 lakh, which comes to 30,000. So basically, if there is a tax loss in a particular year, the fact that it can be carried forward to the next year and adjusted against profits of that year means that because of a tax loss in a current year, there is tax saving that will happen in the future. So that basically urges me or inspires me to record an amount of deferred tax asset. Why? Because the loss in this year will lead to tax saving in the future. That is the basic principle. Now, the only problem here is that you can create a deferred tax asset only if you are assured of the fact that there will be profits in the future. Agar there are no chances of any profits occurring in the future, as in those chances are bleak, or you don't have the information on that as yet, then you should not create a deferred tax asset if you are not sure whether you will end up making a profit in the future. Why? Because again, prudence principle. आपने रिकॉर्ड तो कर लिया, ठीक है, यू रिकॉर्डेड अ डेफर्ड टैक्स असेट, बट नाउ यू बिलीव, बट नाउ यू हैव रीजंस टू बिलीव कि यार फ्यूचर में प्रॉफिट ही नहीं आएगा. सो अगर फ्यूचर में प्रॉफिट ही नहीं आएगा एंड यू हैव रिकॉर्डेड अ deferred tax asset, that means you are again completely misleading the users of financial statements. The users of financial statements believe that there will be tax saving in the future, but वो होने ही नहीं वाला है because sufficient profits are not there in the picture. So in that case, you should not create a deferred tax asset. ठीक है, एक बार go through this. Yes, Viral, tell me.
So one question here, like if we are occurring loss in this year, so only next year we can get the reduction, or for example, next to next year, anytime.
Next year is also
Okay.
fine, but it should be within a reasonable time frame. We can't say that, oh, I'll get profit after 50 years, so I'm creating a deferred tax asset now. That is not allowed.
Okay.
ठीक है.
Yep.
Okay. Now, IFRS, like we had IAS 12 and IAS 16, then we discussed tax losses. Let's discuss an interaction between IFRS 16 and IAS 12. Now, IFRS 16 is accounting for leases, and IAS 12 is income taxes. Now, the tax authorities in different countries, they have different points of view. So, what if they tell you that the deduction that you will get, see, they can give you two options. Either claim a deduction for the amount of lease rental paid, the amount of lease payment that you are making each year, for that you claim a tax deduction. Or you can claim a deduction for depreciation on the right of use asset, which is an expense, and you can claim a deduction on the finance charges. You cannot get deductions for both, because then that is like giving you a double advantage or a double benefit. What is the principle here? The principle here is that you will not get deductions, or you will not get advantages on both sides of the spectrum. Either you will get a deduction for finance charges and interest, or you will get a deduction for the lease liability payments that you are making at the end of each year. Now, if this is the case, if this is what is going to happen, then our deferred tax analysis will also have to be structured accordingly. The one aspect that is tested more in the paper is that the deduction is in respect of lease liability. If the deduction is in respect of lease liability and I have recorded an entry, right of use asset account debit to lease liability account. Okay. If this is the accounting entry that I have recorded, and I will be getting income tax deduction for the lease liability payment that I have done. Now, in this case, see, I need carrying amount and I need tax base. Right of use asset ka tax base, sorry, carrying amount is 3,79,000. Now tell me, I am not, see, tax base of an asset is ये asset के लिए मुझे future में कितना deduction मिलेगा. Now, had it been depreciated and had depreciation been allowed as a deduction, then I would have said ki nahi, against this 3,79,000, I will get a certain deduction in the future. But now I know that deduction is not going to be given to me in respect of the depreciation on the right of use asset. So there is not going to be any deduction on the depreciation part. ठीक है, depreciation part पे there is going to be no deduction. So how do we calculate tax base of an asset? ये asset के लिए in the future how much more deduction I am getting? I am not getting any deduction, so tax base of the asset is zero. Carrying amount is greater than tax base. For this 3,79,000 you will get a DTL का calculation. Think of the lease liability. Lease liability का carrying amount is 379. What is tax base of a lease liability? Carrying amount minus ये particular item के लिए how much more deduction am I getting in the future? Now I know कि today I have recorded a lease liability of 3,79,000 and income tax authorities are going to allow me deduction only for the amount of lease rentals paid. तो फिर ये पूरा पूरा amount will be available as a deduction in the future. So आपका tax base कितना हो जाएगा? Tax base will be 379 minus 379, that is 0. And to that extent, you will have to create a DTA. Now, in the exam, forget all of that. Just follow this set of rules where IFRS 16 and IAS 12 are interacting with each other. ROU asset के लिए carrying amount take as per books of accounts. Tax base is always 0. Difference between 1 and 2 into tax rate gives you your DTL. For lease liability, carrying amount take as per books. Tax base is always 0. Difference between 1 and 2 will give you your deferred tax asset. एग्जाम में सिर्फ अभी इतना ही याद रखना, nothing more apart from that. Are you with me, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, one last aspect or one last point of interaction, IAS 12 and IFRS 2. IFRS 2 is share-based payments. See, the idea is here at the end of 3 years, there are employees. I have given them a piece of paper which tells them, listen, after 3 years, you will be able to purchase shares at a price of 10 rupees. The market price is 100. The difference between these two is 90. Think from the company's point of view. Company would have not earned, company would have received 100 rupees on issuing shares. But the company got only 10 rupees because that was the share option. Company got 90 rupees less than what it could have gotten had it issued the shares in the market. So difference आ गया. This is a loss for the company. Because we follow accrual, matching and all of these principles, our thought process is कि इसको divide करो by 3 years if it is 3 years and record the entry. Employee compensation expense account debit to equity. Now ये accounting entry तो हो गया as per accrual, matching, blah blah blah. But Tax authorities say कि यार we are not giving you any deduction on the basis of these expected assumed values. At the end of the third year, when the employees actually exercise the option and when you actually suffer a loss, that is when we will be giving you the deduction. So my accounting profit keeps on reducing every year, but my tax base तो है ही नहीं कुछ in this case, right? My accounting profit keeps on reducing every year. So what I should do is, carrying amount of share based payment is always nil, less tax base of share based payment. Tax base of the share based payment will be the amount of deduction which will, what is tax base of an item? Tax base of an item is carrying amount minus deduction that I will get in the future. ठीक है? So carrying amount is 0, deduction that I will get in the future is, say for example, 40,000. So मेरा tax base हो जाएगा minus 40,000. Okay, so the difference between 0 minus of minus 40,000, I will get 40,000. ठीक है? And on this I will have to create a deferred tax asset. Tax base is carrying amount minus deduction. यहाँ पे tax base will have a negative value. Now the accounting entry is DTA to P&L, but when the amount of estimated future tax deduction exceeds accumulated remuneration expense, it indicates that tax deduction is partly remuneration and partly related to equity. The difference gets recognized in equity. Not so, this particular part, not so critical as from a last minute discussion point of view. Just focus on one more aspect, which is, can you offset DTA DTL? You can adjust DTA DTL only if you can adjust the current tax payable and current tax receivable. Agar current tax can be net off, then deferred tax can also be net off, and uh, it can be netted off only if it is imposed by the same taxation authority. ठीक है? This is how your entire deferred tax will work in the paper. इसको ये सारे adjustments भी आने का chance कम है, बट यू शुड बी अवेयर बिकॉज लीजेस का एडजस्टमेंट जेटेक कंपनी में है. ठीक है? सो वो एक एडजस्टमेंट आप देख लो, बाकी के सारे भी देख लो, मैंने आपको स्टेप्स लिख के दे दिए हैं. एंड दैट इज प्रिटी मच ऑल दैट वी हैड टू डू विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू IAS 12 income taxes. Our next session will be on consolidation. I will be covering certain critical aspects of consolidation which are important from an examination perspective. ठीक है? Tomorrow's session will be the last session in the revision series. ठीक है? Prepare well, work on these topics, and tomorrow we'll sit for consolidation. Thank you.